Hello, I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at All Things Social Security and Joy Disability Law. Your video is about to start. I just wanted to remind you that if you click the join button below, you can learn more about the memberships offered at a very affordable price that can give you a little more direct attorney answers to your questions. Have a great day and enjoy the video. Hey, so another little ditty about function report, this time number 13, and it's KK brought it up again. So I want to go over this a little bit. It seems like people do have troubles answering the question about meals in an informative and helpful at the same time way. So KK Shar brought up the fact that it sounds like this is a parent of multiple kids, has a spouse, and does make casseroles. And if someone were to put down a 14, do you prepare your own meals? Yes. What do you make? Casseroles. That can sound really involved, right? The term, because if anybody remembers casseroles, for those that indulge in them, my mother used to make them all the time when I was a kid. There is a lot of ingredients that go in there. There might be a lot of prepping of the food that goes into this mixture that you put in the, I don't know, the casserole. What do you call it? Dish? Sorry, guys. Can you tell I'm not a big chef? Although I do cook, I promise, just not as much as my husband. Yeah, I'm lucky in that way, right? So I would, and if the case is where you do casseroles, but it could be, older kids, someone chops the carrot, you could have pre-chopped stuff. You could actually buy it from the store pre-chopped. Sometimes your pasta, I think your pasta, if you're having pasta in it, will cook right in there. Sometimes a potato could do that too. So if other people are doing the prep work and then they put it in and then it's your recipe and maybe you stirred it and then you put it in the oven and it baked for, I don't know how long these things bake for. I would make clear that, I make casseroles. However, I am not the actual hands-on task person, the prepper. I have assistants that, the older children and my spouse do the prep work and have all the ingredients ready. And then, maybe it's you putting them in according to the, the amounts that are supposed to be in there. So I would explain that, casseroles. However, all prep is done by prep cutting, is done by whoever. And I put it in the oven. Or if you have trouble, keep in mind, if you have lifting issues, where a casserole, which can be pretty heavy, and bending into the oven, depends on what your impairment is. Some people have back impairment. So that's what I'm referring to here, although I don't think KK Shar, that's her or his problem. So if it were back, I have a lot of people with really significant back injuries, damages, who have someone else have to put heavy things. They have to move heavy pots filled with water, pasta pots. They don't do any of that stuff. So their part of the meal preparation is far more limited and specific to, it could be stirring the sauce in the stove. In this case, a casserole could be all the prepping's done, measuring with the measuring cup, how much carrots are going in there or whatever, or chopped meat. And then I would explain, and then my husband or my wife has to put the casserole dish, which is quite heavy, at, if you can measure it, so quite heavy at 6 pounds. And I can't carry that while putting it in the oven, or I can't bend while holding something like that. Sometimes people bend, they have to hold on to a counter. That would be probably contrary to being able to put a casserole in the oven, because the casserole, you probably need 2 hands for it. And taking it out, a whole nother story. Those things are blazing hot. So things like that. always think about what you put down. And if you realize that it's going to look like you are more of a Superman or woman than you are, but you know that's not how you're doing it, I would explain those things. And again, try to keep it short and concise, not full flowery sentences. This isn't essay writing. It is literally getting the message across. Okay. And you have limited space. All right. That's it on the casserole making, guys. And KK Shar, thank you so much for sharing what's going on with you. We are thinking about you, and thanks for sharing to us. I appreciate it. And I'll be thinking about you. Bye now. Hey, so if the subject matter of the video you just listened to is of interest and you want more on it, stay tuned. Here's another one about the same topic, but a little bit different. Bye now. Hey, let's go over a little detail about question number 13 on the function report. This is the one that talks to you or asks you about your meals. And there are many ways this can be used, I think, against an individual. So, or for. So you want to be really clear about what's going on with your meal preparation and all that. So we're talking about the function report, the SSA 3373, that virtually every claimant who files an SSD claim is going to have to fill out. As you know, we have short videos on every single question, I think, on the function report. So feel free to go to the playlist about function report, and you can cherry pick which ones, if you're not going to listen to all questions, certainly the ones that you think you're having trouble with. Okay. It'll just give a little more insight and some pitfalls to avoid. Okay. All right. So 13, I'm looking at it over here. Do you prepare your own meals? Yes or no? Now, for many people, that's going to be a yes. I have had some people who don't prepare their meals. They are fortunate to have someone prepare them for them. And I'm not talking bedridden people, of course. So, but there are people who have say a spouse who, even if they didn't do it in the past, is doing it now. You know, when you cook for one, you may as well cook for the other, and there you go. But oftentimes it is yes, because think about it. Sometimes it might be, you know, you're the disabled one at home, right? And your spouse is going to work. How are you eating breakfast? How are you eating lunch? How are you eating snacks in between, getting to them? So it could just be where that person, you know, your loved one is preparing simply dinner for you, and you are, you know, foraging for yourself during the day. So if you prepare meals, any of your meals, I think you would say yes, but I think you would use the opportunity to include in here, and they don't give you very much space, notice that, and there's a reason for that. They're not trying to read a book, but I would make sure to probably clarify that, you know, if I only make myself breakfast, that it's breakfast, bowl of cereal, or breakfast, toast, you know, that kind of thing. If you are able to, and mostly here, we're talking usually about physical problems that would impede this or has caused you, because it can be uncomfortable, maybe standing over a stove, frying eggs, or jumping between the eggs and the toast and really negotiating the time, multitasking. A lot of people stop doing that when they have an impairment of a physical nature that perhaps limits moving fast, standing long, that kind of thing. So you want to be clear. If you have, and think about what you had in the last week. I mean, this is not to say that if like 18 months ago you fried yourself some eggs because you're having a good day, that doesn't mean you change your answer based on what you generally do now. Because right now they're talking about what you do now, not what you did last year or 6 months ago. So if it's as simple as, you know, cereal, toast, opening up a thing of yogurt, grabbing a banana, or you have, if you're like me, I usually heat up dinner leftovers. I have the weirdest breakfasts. It's just quick and it's easy. Not that I don't love the other stuff, you know, when I have the opportunity. But if you are having super simple things that take seconds to a minute or two to grab,
and then to be on your merry way to the table or the recliner or wherever you eat it. I would make that clear. Okay. Don't just say, I've seen people say, whatever I'm in the mood for. That tells the fact finder nothing. Remember, they don't know you. And if you have limits to what you're cooking, you want to make sure that those limited meals are mentioned. If you are cooking yourself a 5-course breakfast, spending an hour in the kitchen, I would suggest that maybe, unless you have severe mental illness and you're like regularly institutionalized, you might not be disabled if you're able to do that from a physical standpoint. So that means you have to really be mentally extremely limited, to pass this muster here. I'm looking at a function report, and this resulted in a denial. It's one of the ALJ denials I have in my archives, where I was trying to connect the evidence to where this judge denied this person, in case we're going to file for a future, a future application if you have the space, the time frame. If her DLI was out, extended out enough. And this was a pain case. I will say this was an under 50 case. And as you know, when there's a video on this, under 50, you have more challenges. So you're going to have to really buck up and pay attention. Okay. Everybody should, but under 50, you've got more burdens. So you need to learn about them. And this answer was along the lines of, yes, I make complete meals because I have a family. And it turns out the person had, a spouse and 2 kids. And I think when she created this function report, she was probably, as a parent, sometimes you never want to acknowledge when you're doing less for your family that you would ideally want to do, that you've dreamt of always being the perfect parent, and et cetera, et cetera. So, and of course you would buck up to pain and do everything perfectly for your family, regardless. Like somehow you get like Superman powers. That's not going to help here. So, and the term complete meals really needs a little bit of description, because we have no idea if those complete meals were a complete bowl of cereal and she puts it on the table for them. Very nice, right? I don't do that for my kids. They get it themselves. Or are we talking like I fry bacon, then I crack eggs, then I mix them and I grab the milk and I put that in and I put a few extra spices in there. And then I grab the potatoes, but they haven't been boiled yet. So I make sure to boil those, and then I cut them up and then I make home fries, and then, or whatever, like, what do you mean by complete meals? You cannot use such a vague term, in my opinion, when answering a question like this. This, I think, was part of the denial reasons. Remember, I was saying that I'm going to grab one now, the denial. And this is just one example from the function report. There's others that this ALJ drew on to support the denial. And I can't really say I blame him or her. I don't even recall, and I'm not going to look. Because if the person's saying I can make complete meals despite my severe and debilitating pain that keeps me from a simple, easy job where I don't have to do anything heavy because I have a family, it doesn't pass the sniff test. Okay. So what it does is, and the person had, some significant medical treatment records of perhaps a surgery that had taken place on the spine. There's a dog. But this kind of goes to whether the descriptions of pain and limitation that after one's recovered from a surgery, is that really as bad as you say it is? I mean, obviously you're not going to be 100%. I don't think surgery makes us 100%, but it can make us function pretty darn well when we're fortunate, and we're one of the fortunate ones where it worked for. So, to be disabled, it's going to be more than, well, I'm not 100%. I'm only at 90. Yeah. So go do a job that you can do at 90%. Right. So one thing that the judge drew on, and he pointed to the function report, specifically the function report. This is why I drive home with it's so important to get it together before you do that function report, so you know what you're doing. He says that, when, reporting the answers in the function report, the claimant said that she was limited by her pain, indeed, but that she was also able to provide the comfort and care and support to her spouse and 2 kids. She goes on to say, and we have other video on this, on the function report question concerning pets, that she provides basic care. And if I look at the function report, how did she describe that? Well, feed and basic care. What is basic care? For some dog owners, that's taking your dog for a mile walk in the morning and a mile walk in the afternoon. For other ones, it's includes, we don't know if it's a big or small dog. It includes getting them in the car, taking them to the vet, picking them up and putting them in the car when they're afraid to do that. Speaking of which, I've had to do that like 1, 2, 3 times in the last 5 or so weeks for my, 80-pound Bernese mountain dog who got a hematoma in her ear, cost us a fortune, because she had to have surgery and all that stuff because it wasn't going to go away. And this is the sweetest dog ever. So nice. She's just a big puppy still at this point. I don't think she's even 2 yet. Couldn't get her in the truck. So my daughter and I were looking like fools trying to lug her in. We tried to bribe her. I had one of those little canopy things so she wouldn't completely destroy the truck because she's not a good vehicle dog. We know that from taking her to get her fixed a while back. She drools incessantly. I think she's having a little nausea, So we've had to try everything to get her in. This time it worked out pretty good, but we were given some doggy trazodone, I think it was, or gabapentin, I forget which, but it's the doggy version from the vet, 2.5 hours before on an empty stomach. And little bribery with some of her favorite food, and she got right in. Now this is her 1, 2, 3, like 6th time in the last several weeks. So it might be that she's getting used to it, maybe. But anyway, if that was my basic care, taking my dog to the vet, that's pretty arduous. So I think leaving it as basic care leaves it a wide open field for a judge to presume then that you do everything full hilt, and there's nothing to suggest it's anything less. And another, going back to the meals now, right? But that's just about not saying things that are vague, that can be taken as a very skilled, talented, and unimpaired, result. When under the meals again, so we just talked about when it says, what kind of meals do you prepare? And I said, get specific and general. Like if it's like, don't do the outlier, the one off where you made a turkey, or that wouldn't be for breakfast. You made that whole multi-course breakfast we were talking about. Keep it what it typically is, on your typical days of how you feel. And if it's super simple food, you want to give examples. It tells you to give examples. And some people, and I see this all the time, don't put in examples. Like this one just says, full meals, because I have a family to consider. But the question was, if yes, you prepare your meals, what kind of food do you prepare? It goes on to say, parentheses, for example, sandwiches, frozen dinners, or complete meals with several courses. She did go on to say complete meals, because she has a family. And that sounds like she was being very honest. And I appreciate that. However, you have to know that probably indicates you're not disabled from a simple, sedentary, easy 3rd grade job with no lifting, no nothing. I mean, obviously she can lift because it's complete meals. And how often do you do them? Daily. In this one, if all you do is grab your simple breakfast and grab your simple lunch, it could even be a pre-made because someone made it for you, but they're not there for you, or you have microwavable stuff. And again, you're going to give those details. If you say daily for breakfast, daily for lunch, never dinner, maybe because someone makes you dinner and, gives it to you. You want to be specific on how often you do it, because you want the opportunity. If it's less often than an unimpaired person, you want to make sure that point sticks. Okay. How long does it take you? Now, when the judge relied on some of her function report, and you'll see this, this answer probably helped him realize that she's quite adept at home, and how we live at home is a reflection of what we could do out there from a physical standpoint at the very least. So she said it takes up to an hour to 2 hours when she's in the kitchen preparing food for her family and herself. That's a long time. That is a showstopper. And again, I appreciate the honesty. She was very honest, and in her mind was disabled because probably she couldn't do her prior job. It was too much. But having the ability to do some pretty active work for 2 hours straight in a kitchen, you know, normally they say we work for 2 hours, take a 15-minute break, work for 2 hours, take a 15-minute break, work for 2 hours, you know, and between you and me, we know she's not doing this 8 hours a day. So in a sense, it can seem unfair that, you know, doing one thing in the morning for your family for 2 hours is going to kill your case. I get it, but this is the optics we're dealing with. Okay. It doesn't say here up to 2 hours, but then I have to go lie down for 2. You know, if that was so, and had, you know, if she said that, that would make perhaps a different scenario. And here's another one. Any changes in cooking habits since the illness, injuries, or conditions began? No. So she has actually also confirmed that she was an arduous cooker before, and she's an arduous cooker now, because those bad pain conditions just don't affect that. Just don't. So maybe the person should just go be a short order cook, or perhaps work in a diner, you know. And I don't mean to be too funny here, because I know the person is not 100%, but these are the kind of answers that the judge is reading, and you're asking him to find that you're unable to do anything full time, even a simple, sedentary, slow paced, no skill required, no lifting, sit, stand when you want. It's just not going to work out that well. It's not going to. He had said the claimant does prepare the meals for both herself and her family, does the household cleaning responsibilities, although acknowledges that, she said, with help of family members. And I think maybe the reason why that wasn't so helpful, I don't think it was hurtful to indicate that family helps. It still gives the impression that this claimant is the ringleader, does the most of it. And then, of course, as we're always trying to get our children to pitch in, some people have better luck than I do. You know, so that would not necessarily be different from an impaired person, that family members help, because most parents are trying to get their family members, their children, to chip in, or their husbands or wives, you know. He points out that she does do the laundry. He also does point out that she does need help carrying the clothes baskets. So that's something she mentioned in her function report. And, you know, I've seen people indicate when they need help going up the stairs with the baskets. I've seen people describe how the spouse, for instance, will bring the baskets to the washer, and the claimant simply loads it, but maybe can't load the top loader, can only load the side, you know. So they kind of have the things they know. They're like, we had to get this kind of a loader because I can't do that anymore. Not bad things to mention. Anyway, that's what I'm driving home about the food preparation. It's a thing we do every single day. And if that kind of looks like a very normal person, it's gonna give a ring of not being disabled, impaired, limited, can't do your prior job, can't maybe lift 50 pounds all day long, for sure, no problem. But unable to do all of those 12,000 occupations, it's just gonna sink it. This will be especially true for the under 50 crowd. So you have to be very, very, very careful about your function report. All these little things that, I mean, I've seen people out and, you know, comment to me like, oh, I hardly believe they're going to deny based. I'm like, well, then the judge is lying in his denial. That's not why then. Like, there's all these little, as I said, crumbs that lead up to a denial. It's the same thing if they lead up to an award. They are crumbs, and every little piece gets added. And when it gets to a certain point, it can be a denial or an award, depending. Is it the crumbs of good or the crumbs of bad? So if it's, if you would have been 2 crumbs short of a denial, wouldn't you like to take it? Because that means it's an award, So don't give them any crumbs. Just don't give them any crumbs. Okay, so that's a little bit more on the cooking. Did I say shopping? The cooking. We might be touching some more on shopping soon, but for now, that's it. Thanks so much. Bye, guys.